Because right now today is that most Splunk users wouldn't want to go ahead and share the data with their IT or maybe share it with their HR department, worried about impacting the security team. So with this platform here now is that you can have this way to basically share your data through maybe a BI tool or just sharing the raw data to, say, your HR team. And it really has no impact on your security team. And so then you can start plugging in applications like our Elysium application. And then we show how you can get additional insights in your data with this basically connected app built on top of Snowflake.
Greetings, everyone. Through here. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the DemoHub. We have a very exciting episode and a guest today with us, Christopher Berry, Director of Data Analytics at Elysium Analytics. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Really glad to have you, Chris. Where are you calling from today?
I am calling from sunny California, San Francisco.
Oh, nice. Beautiful weather there, I'm sure.
It is beautiful weather. I live in the Castro, so it's very colorful here too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Chris, really glad to have you. I know today we're going to be talking about security data lake. We're going to be talking about analytics. I'm very excited about that. And you are the director of analytics at Elysium Analytics. For the audience who are not exposed to Elysium, can you talk about what Elysium is and what you do in the market?
Yeah. I mean, to kind of give you a thumbnail sketch of what our company does, we essentially offer security analytics for our customers, but this is purely built in Snowflake. So we're a native application designed to really use sort of the next generation data platforms. So as we know, there's companies out there like Databricks and stuff like that, but we decided to go with Snowflake in terms of having that as our core infrastructure for building out our basically security analytics platform. And so with this platform now, then we have these capabilities that are not available in today's SIMs. And things I'll mention in my discussion today is that really a lot of users are just dealing with data overload and or also just frustrated with having to switch to different consoles, all the data silo. So really having it all in one central data lake is what we provide the customer with all the additional capabilities. And in terms of my role, the company, I serve sort of the guide for all our analytics. I worked at a company before this called Cylance, and I had a great team I worked there with. So I feel like I've learned a lot about how they do the machine learning there. And so we've kind of taken some of the practice there and I've applied it here so that, we can have really explainable machine learning so that, it doesn't require a data science to look at the data or look at the analysis. So those are some things that we work on, trying to make the data explainable and provide these insights.
Oh, okay, that's pretty exciting. And I think you've touched on a couple of things there that we want to go in and unpack. You've talked about native application. What exactly is that? Build on Snowflake. You've talked about SIEM. Is the goal to replace SIEMs in the industry? Can you unpack a couple of those terms you've used there in that introduction?
Yeah, great question. So I think in terms of replacement of SIM right now, we don't see ourselves as a direct replacement. We see ourselves more as an augmentation because we know that a lot of customers have invested a lot of time and energy into workflows built around their existing platforms like Splunk that they can't easily rip out. And so I think that's one thing where we are more complementary. We know that those UIs have a purpose in place and we can complement them and provide them really visibility to what they can't see today. And I think the whole native application is really meant to be a single place where you can have all your, not only your data, but your visualization. So it's a very centrally located solution.
That's awesome. I know we have a presentation to go through, and maybe we're going to answer some of this as we go through the discussion. Do you want to bring that up on the screen?
Sure, yeah. Let's just go through. All right, great. So thank you again for this opportunity to share about our solution. So let me just help you understand where we're coming from. So one of the things that we are excited about right now is this new innovation from us where and I'll talk shortly about this, is where we can actually complement a solution like Splunk and provide these insights that you can't get today. So what does that mean? Well, I mean, most Splunk users have come up against, like, there's just way too much data right now. The volume's huge. And it's, as you mentioned too, Fru, that it's overwhelming SIMs. And so a lot of companies are also today like cloud first organizations. And so with the ability to ingest all this data, I mean, right now we have a lot of critical data that is siloed into numerous actually security solutions. And this leads to sort of this swivel chair effect. so, you're constantly moving from one console to the next, you lack visibility. And ultimately, this leads to potentially, longer threat investigations, maybe missed signals from all this. And so without this, having the data not available hot, it creates all these issues. And that's where I think there's an opportunity for us and we to show more about this. So let me show you what we're talking about. So maybe you have like a Splunk instance here and it's connected. And so that's great, but when you have only your data in Splunk, you're missing the ability to collect, say, other sources so that you can get correlation and resolution much faster. And so what we've done is we've at Elysium, we thought, so, well, yeah, I mean, let's plug this into a security data lake. I mean, if you could get something that's always hot, low cost, and zero engineering effort to have a data lake that you can plug your Splunk into, I think that's worth a thought. And we thought so too. And so that's why we built this Splunk add-on component that basically allows you for faster investigations across your data. So here's an example of this. So essentially what you would do is that data would flow directly into Splunk, but also be loaded into the Elysium data lake that's running in Snowflake. And so this illustration, just simple implementation. So you have all your telemetry going to both Splunk and us. And so this gives you now this ability to actually query Splunk, but also not only query Splunk, but query the data sitting in Elysium in the Splunk search bar. So, and also the result sets you get are all back in the Splunk UI.
Okay, just for the add-on there, is that a push mechanism to get that to Snowflake, or is it a pull from Snowflake pulling from Splunk?
Great questions. So what it is it's a push. And so if I can show some of the files here. So this is just one of the files that we would, so there's something called the Splunk forwarder. It's a component of Splunk, and what it's used is to potentially send data off to other applications. And so what we do is we provide a set of pre-built config files for Splunk forwarder, and this is just one of them here, and that they deploy in their environment. So the data would basically, they redirect some of the traffic to be loaded directly into Snowflake. So essentially what happens is the data goes into Splunk and then it's bifurcated and also sent it into Snowflake. And so we have basically something that it basically resembles a collector that can take the data up into Snowflake.
Okay.
All right. And the great thing about this architecture is that, when you can run queries, really heavy loaded queries on this environment here. So in here, basically you can run these like heavyweight queries that you don't need to worry about it impacting the performance of your Splunk system. So really to kind of offload some of those key features in the data lake capability.
Okay. And I know you're going to touch on this, but I think there's a couple of things that really makes this exciting. Number one is just being able to have your security data lake close to potentially your enterprise data that you can ask and correlate more questions than you can if that security data lake was a silo in itself. Is that kind of what you're
Absolutely
saying?
correct and spot on. In
Mhm.
fact, you're a little prescient there too, because I'm going to show some correlation with Splunk and Elysium in a few minutes. So yeah, that's a really great use case we're excited to show today.
Mhm. And then for the users that are interacting with this, is that search happening from the Splunk side and it can query the security data lake right on Snowflake, or do you have a separate UI to facilitate that
Also,
search?
another great question. So yeah, we realize that there are some limitations in Splunk, and so the people, especially what we like to think is that for the more advanced analytics, so for more sort of the data scientists who may be wanting to run like a Jupyter notebook, or more interested in more the machine learning aspect of that, and that's a great part where in my demo I'll show you how in the Elysium application we enable those use cases.
Oh, okay. Sounds very good. And then can you talk a little bit about the open data model that you have? I think that's a key component of
Also,
the.
man, you're 3 for 3. So
Mhm.
great question again. So why we think the open data model is such an important element is that it's the glue that connects the data together. So today, when you have a data source, it has its own schema. And so, and I like to say that nice thing about standards, there's so many to pick from. And so a lot of people use different standards. So what we do is we glue these all together into a single unified schema. So then we provide insight across not only one data source, but all your data source by stitching in the source IPs and the destination all through the data model. And then on top of that, what we do, which is a little different from other vendors, is that we actually have these higher level family views. So what is that? So let's say, for example, you wanted to look at a question like, show me who's just recently created a virtual machine. So in a large enterprise, that could be EXX, it could be AWS, it could be GCP, where you're creating VMs. So with us, we just provide a higher level view that allows you to search across all those and just look for a particular, well, show me that. So you don't need to worry about looking in each individual data source. So these are just ways to reduce the time the analysts need to look at individual silos. So what else can you do with this? Well, then you can start loading other sources you normally couldn't load into your Splunk system. And what are those potential sources? Well, that could be your EDR. As I mentioned, I worked at a company called Cylance before, and that's a great, very verbose source that has a lot of telemetry in there. It's good for insights. Other ones are NTR, so network transfer relationships, and then DNS information is also another one. And maybe a good example would be something like if you had AWS VPC, that's a very voluminous source that you would want to potentially load directly into a data lake versus putting into Splunk. And so that's where that comes in. And then you can actually do enrichment on that data, as you see on the right side over here, where you could actually provide maybe additional enrichment through the marketplace that's provided through Snowflake. And so they have threat intelligence, geolocation, and other providers. So it allows you to enrich the data to provide a much stronger signal to some of your detections. So, and then really what does this also let you do is you can start plugging in other tools. So what our customers are excited about is that, once they can have the data in their data lake, then they can start sharing the data with other organizations. Because right now today is that most Splunk users wouldn't want to go ahead or a Splunk admin share the data with their IT or maybe share it with their HR department, worried about impacting the security team. So with this platform here now is that you can have this way to basically share your data through maybe a BI tool or just sharing the raw data to, say, your HR team. And it really has no impact on your security team. And so then, you can start plugging in applications. And like the one I'm going to show you shortly is where we plug in our Elysium application. And then we show, how you can get additional insights in your data with this basically connected app built on top of Snowflake.
Pretty good. And let me step in here for a question as you're going this fascinating architecture. I think I'm a big believer in you have to get the right architecture for solutions. Otherwise, you could really be down
Yeah.
a rabbit hole. Who are the main audience for this? Are the CISOs that are picking up the phone and calling companies like Elysium to come in and to help reduce cost, capture more data sets, search faster? Or is this coming from the CDO or just architects? Where are you seeing this pain really coming from to start thinking at this level to get that unified security data lake?
It's really coming from the architect level. It's
Mhm.
really where you go back to what you said earlier about how they're looking at sort of foundational things, that they're looking at how they can satisfy, not only be able to satisfy their security end users, but also address other things like, data scientists or just having more data available for the analysts. So yeah, it's really having the data available for the analyst to basically connect the dots of the data. And yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean, essentially, basically having this new platform enables them to really sort of see what kind of things what kind of things they can see in the data. One of the things that we do differently is we provide is a lot of sort of behavioral analytics, and so
Mhm.
look at users score, or we baseline users and machines or host, and then we identify when those things deviate from their norm. And this is a very powerful tool for security analysts to basically understand what's changing in their environment as they investigate.
So yeah, so you probably have a set of pre-built templates, so the teams can just be up and running, plugging that into their data, as opposed to having to create those detections by themselves.
Yes. Yeah, so we provide a whole bunch of out of the box detections that come with our solution. So, and we know that a lot of accounts need to have special use cases that they can build out with our platform too.
That's awesome. And I know we're gonna have a demo here, so I'm really excited to see that on the backside of things. So yeah, we can continue.
Okay, great. So basically, this is a Splunk instance it's running, and on which then we've installed the Elysium add-on component. So we've deployed it in here. we've actually gone ahead already in this demonstration. We have these config files from the Splunk forwarder. So these are just files you would drop into your Splunk forwarder to start sending your data over to Elysium.
Okay. And just for the audience that are watching who might be asking this question, how is the billing for that add-on? Is it per volume of data forwarded? Is it per seat? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure,
For
yeah. So in question in terms of the billing, the way that we operate is that we charge purely by the credit usage. So based on the number of credits they use. So if, say, for example, they start leveraging Elysium, they would be, as you know, Snowflake would charge so many credits for that compute. What we do is we charge $3 per credit, very similar to Snowflake as they use those credits, as they use a compute on the system. In terms of the Splunk add-on, we don't charge anything for that. That's just free for customers to use. But it's you really, in order to use the Splunk add-on, you'll need to have the security data lake too.
okay, makes sense.
So it works. This Splunk add-on works in conjunction with the data lake.
Okay. And then also, just so we touch on this, Elysium is delivered as a service. It's a SaaS
Yes.
application, nothing to install on-prem, and you're always getting
Yeah.
all the
So we are
benefits of
SaaS,
the. Oh,
correct.
okay.
Yeah.
And can you deploy in any of the cloud providers if you choose,
Yes.
or
So we support all the cloud providers. So AWS. Obviously, we have preferences. We prefer AWS and Azure, but we can do GCP too.
awesome.
And so, yeah, that's all part of our service here. And so here, basically, what you're looking at is a Splunk interface, as I said. But I wanted to show you just sort of what's so amazing about this is that, and I'm going to pull up some sort of historical searches that we run and just show you some of the things that you can do within within the Splunk. So, for example, here, like I can add this search here, which is basically using the Splunk add-on. It's sending over a select statement, which is being forwarded over to the Elysium platform, which will then return data back and then show that result set back into Splunk. Okay. So I just hit, let's do for all data. And so now basically I've gotten results set back pretty fast, basically showing me some information of like telling me destination IPs and the amount of data flowing through that. I may want to sort the data and then maybe investigate. So I can start interacting with the data lake, just staying within the Splunk interface.
This is fascinating. So from the end user perspective, one of the things here is the learning curve could be lowered because they still interact with Splunk the way they've normally done, but you're taking advantage of the power of Snowflake, the scalability, the extended storage to bring back that result. Is that correct?
Yeah, and then you can do things like what you were talking about earlier, Fru, is that basically we can then go and start to correlate data. So if I go back to search and then I'll bring up another search query. And here, which is this one here. And so what this one doing is basically it's pulling data out of the Splunk index called net traffic. So basically we are sending it over to Elysium component, which then sends the data and correlates it with that data. And so then we basically figure out what domains are sort of legit. So we in our system we were talking about was that we do machine learning. And so some of the machine learning we do is domain analysis. So we'll look at domains and make a determination if it's DGA, meaning domain generated algorithm domain. So we can do that by sending like data from Splunk over to Elysium and then correlating that. And this is just an example of that.
That's awesome.
And then customers may also be interested in more of the visualization too. So what we do is we've also provide pre-built dashboards. So let's take a look at user activity. So this dashboard, which we're excited about, is essentially allows you to take data that's not only from Splunk, but also from your Elysium data lake, and then visualize that data here. So as it comes up, and it's basically what we'll see is that we have data from both systems. I have it up here already, I think. And so we have data from both systems here. This data is also another example here. But this is like all the data you get from not only from Splunk, but also from Elysium. Here, there it goes. So basically, we have this dashboard of active users. What we can see in this example here is that we've got basically this user, John White, who's generating a lot of user activity. So this is something we wouldn't normally maybe see without having additional data sources involved. Like in this case, in this example here, what we're looking at is that we've actually loaded the AWS VPC data into Elysium, and we correlate that data inside with Splunk so that we can investigate and look at things we would normally couldn't see with just running a Splunk instance.
Hmm.
So here, like, okay, I've got this, and obviously this is a demonstration. I'm just trying to illustrate something, but I think it's powerful because we can then say what data we have in the data lake that's related to John White and all that, and we can bring that into a single console. So, and then we can say, well, great, I have this information, maybe tell me more about this information. And then you can investigate this and query data that's actually sitting in the Snowflake data lake, but then is visualized within. So,
Pretty cool. Is there a heuristics or just a rule of thumb in terms of how much data you want to keep hard in Splunk versus pushing that down into the security data lake? Is it like 20, 80%? Or 10, 90? How have you seen that play out for customers?
generally, what customers would do is one of two things. Either keep like a rolling 90 days.
Rolling 90 days, okay.
Yeah, or what they also would do is just put data in both systems and only keep 90 days within Splunk. So the stream comes in, you bifurcate it and send it to both locations. Or have basically Splunk load it also directly into the data lake.
Okay.
So, and then here's an example of where, we drill down on that IP address. This is, as I said, AWS VPC flow, which is a very voluminous source. And so we can see here that we have some not data exfiltration, but we have some data outbound traffic that is unusual, that is very large for this user, and that we can then identify these outbound potentially data exfiltration by just like by correlating with the VPC data. And then we just see the external IPs. And so now I have ability to say, well, okay, well, let's go ahead and investigate these destination IPs. Maybe these are potential threats. The other thing I would want to do is maybe go and see like what other users may have gone to this IP address. So this is just one of the, a simple example of how you email data from your Splunk with a data lake, especially like a VPC flow data, really provide you sort of that deeper insight. And so you don't avoid those missed signals.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you talked about the voluminous source, very high resolution data. Typically, you don't want to bring that into the SIEM, right? It gets really expensive to bring that kind of
Yeah,
data in.
yeah. So a lot of customers, what they do these days is they just only bring in the alert information, and then they keep the event data outside the system for lookup later. And that's really where some of that rich information is. And so with the power of a Elysium data lake, running on Snowflake, then they can have the best of both.
Exactly.
All right, let me show you a little bit more. So, I mean, this is great, for I'm a SOC analyst. I need to, do my day-to-day job. I can come in here. I can, look at user activity. I could investigate, potentially a different user. So I have all this capability that it's, I need to in order to get answers to my threats. And so I can investigate all that. That's great. But then there's other use cases that are not necessarily being served by Splunk. We also do. And so one of the things we do, and in addition to this, we will provide them basically ability to search the data in our system, but to get access to our machine learning and other capabilities. And so with here, this is just an example of like we provide parity with Splunk in terms of capabilities through our basically Kibana interface that allow you to do, similar things using free text, full text search, but also using our data model. So basically, we provide a parity with the Splunk interface. So you can search all the data. So you don't actually have to go to Splunk if you don't want to, but basically, you can query data here. We provide other capabilities too, basically with the dashboards and also with machine learning and alerting. So and then this username, John White. So I'm just searching for the John White, same user, but I'm looking at it from the Elysium lens.
Okay.
And this is our data model. So maybe help I spell his name right. So basically, this is using our open data model. So we stitch all the data together, so then we can start searching across all of it. And so here, basically, I can look for a user John White. I can start investigating this user and start adding other conditions like John White, source IP, 2168553. So I can perform these more complicated searches. I can do a lot of the same capabilities I can do in Splunk, but it's just, this is also part of it. But what customers are not only excited about this piece, be able to do this kind of forensic investigation, but also they can then do things like, okay, well, tell me, like I want to do is more baselining, understanding advanced analytics. And that's great. So one of the things we do is we not only just, map the data. I mean, we map the data so that we can provide information. So we identify all the alerts in the upcoming streams. We make those alerts available in one location. And then we also provide our alerting on top of that. So customers can come in, they can actually see the upstream alerts. So the alerts from Palo Alto Networks, from the Windows systems, and then also have our alerts. And then we provide these pre-built dashboards where we do baselining and machine learning to help identify anomalous behavior. And so this example, we actually do risk-based scoring where we'll show John White and we say, okay, well, John White has a high score because his behavior has been changing. And then we can investigate that by going to a 360 dashboard. And then with the 360 dashboard, we're not limited to that 90 days sitting in Splunk, but we've got, years worth of data that we can actually bring up in context of this user to identify, what's going on, what behaviors have changed over time. And then we also provide some analysis through the MITRE mapping too. So we'll see here, we basically will map the user to particular MITRE techniques. If we see those, we have their score over time. We show the assets that they've connected to. So really trying to help connect the dots with the analysts so that they can see, what's causing, what machines are they connecting to, and maybe I want to investigate these machines. And so these are just all part of the pre-built solution that they can come in here. And then we provide these basically features that we score against. And these are something that customers can provide or build themselves. So we can extend the product to basically support new use cases on different behaviors we want to monitor.
Yeah, because I'm sure the threat landscape is always changing. I'm guessing behind the scenes, you're also looking at this and updating your ML
Yeah, so we
models.
follow the MITRE tech techniques. So a lot of
Mhm.
one could call characteristics, like, maybe, for example, your privilege escalation. So looking across everything and then monitoring how often you do privilege escalation is one of the MITRE things. So we make sure those, but then we do find other ones that we identify. And then we also do some naive Bayesian scoring on the data. So what does that mean? In a fancy way, it's basically saying whenever we process a record into Elysium, we see if we've ever seen that record before. So is it a really unusual record? Is it a common record? And we start to identify records that are unusual. And we score those so that we point those first to the analyst. And we can see here that this is red, which means it's TGA generated domain. And so we find this very unusual, and that's why we'll score this. So we score individual records. Not only score users and machines, but we also score the actual records coming in to help the analysts understand, is this a very unusual record? So, and then we also provide, as I said, Jupyter notebooks so you can run your models on it. We allow you to run our models too, so you could go in and run our models against the data too, and maybe
Okay.
change the feature sets and other parameters.
All right. So I think this is really exciting. Just to kind of summarize this a little bit, what I've seen is the two entry points for the average user. Ones with existing Splunk investments where they can take advantage of the add-on, leverage the same interface with Splunk, do the push down and leverage the security data lake from that perspective. And then you have the second set of folks who might not have Splunk in their ecosystem. They can come in directly, leverage your search dashboard, Kibana base, I'm guessing is leveraging Elastic or OpenSearch behind.
Yeah, what we do here in our search back here is that so there's something called OpenSearch, and that OpenSearch is a open source distro. So we've taken that and redesigned it or plugged it into Snowflake. So it's really kind of a veneer on top of Snowflake, and so allows you to basically have the same functionality you have in Kibana, but with a Snowflake backend.
Backend. That's awesome. And so in this case, you really don't need, for folks who don't have Splunk at all, they can still have that very powerful search capability with dashboarding pre-built for them to take advantage of.
Yep, the full text search and all those capabilities.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and then maybe just one last thing, just to kind of, we do have some UABAs I've been mentioning. So for example, like, let me go back over here, and just to show you one last thing for behavioral analytics. So we have these behavioral analytics, which helps explain a little more about my machine learning. So like, let's take a look at privileged account usage real quick. So in here, what we do is, one of the things we do for our machine learning is we use these kind of algorithms, which are very explainable, like isolated forced k-means and one SVM. So what we're trying to do is make the data more explainable, so that this is just a two-dimensional clustering we're doing on the data. And now the analyst they don't need to look at this, but this is something we do behind the scenes, and we score each one based on what, to get a little technical here, the Euclidean distance between where they are versus where the community is. And so based on how far they are away, that helps to drive the score and helps it tell the analyst how different are they from not only their behavior, but from the community behavior too.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch a little bit on the AI ML side of things? Is that all implemented on the Snowflake side with like Snowpark and taking advantage of that, or where is
Yes,
that
it's all
happening?
implemented with Snowpark. So
Okay.
we were originally on Databricks, but then with Snowpark out now, we've moved it over. And so now we run our machine learning there. So this is all done within, and that goes back to our whole sort of idea, is that we want to be a native app within Snowflake, so you don't leave. And in fact, we're going to use your native app too to build. So there's search capability here today. I'll be able to come back and show you the same kind of capability inside the native app inside of Snowflake.
Yeah. So for folks that are watching who might not know of the few terms we've called out here on the Snowflake side, Snowpark essentially allows you to run, Python, Java, Scala code on Snowflake beyond just SQL that folks might be used to. And so what that essentially means is, if you have some very powerful ML models implemented in, say, Python, you can take that and run it on your data in Snowflake. And that really allows for tremendous scalability and a whole avenue for AI ML. And native applications essentially is, if you think about how SaaS applications were deployed, and you have servers where you have to host all these SaaS application and pay for that, and then connect to your database, you can essentially take that code, run it on the data, deploy that on your data, and just running as an app very close to your data, which is called a native app. So for folks that are not familiar with those terms, that's essentially what it means.
Yep. Cool. So that's the demo.
And then for the dashboards that are the pre-canned dashboards, do those all come as part of the package,
Yeah.
or are
Yeah.
those additional dashboards that as they come up, you pay extra to get?
So you don't pay extra for them. So we just make so for example, we provide compliance dashboards out of the box, because we do the data mapping, and the way we do the data mapping is that it's all at the base level. We don't, so we basically create views on top of the data that allows us then to plug any kind of analytics at the top. So we can then say, for example, like the customer may want to have NIST CSF, which is part of the 853 NIST framework. And so this is all comes out of the box. All we have to do with Elysium is just map their data and then all these analytics work out of the box.
Okay.
And so you get this. So that's what's the beauty of it. And that's what my role in this company is, that I'm responsible for getting these analytics out to the customers and making sure that they're, salient and have impact to our customers. But that's like building these new kinds of dashboards are making available. And then, but the customers can modify all of these. These are all customizable to what they need.
Yeah, I think that's a salient point there. I wanted to double click on, because and this is now kind of switching gears here into more future vision for what the team at Elysium is doing. Do you see like a marketplace or a collaborative environments for these dashboards that customers are building? Or if I customize something, it's really good and working for my industry or for my vertical, I want to publish back for others to use, maybe open source that. What is your thoughts or vision around that?
So the vision around that is that we do plan to have shared content among our customers. So a library. So one of the first things we're doing is we're building that library of content. And that's not just dashboards, but it's also saved queries and stuff like that. And then essentially, customers can come in and build their own dashboard here. Show this here. So basically they can come in and say, okay, well, maybe I've mapped my data, And then, maybe what I want to do is I want to look across all network connections. So I want to look across my net flow, my firewall data. I want to do analysis on that. They just got to go to this one ODM view, which is called network connections. And then they can basically select their fields through this nice UI here, through the looker interface. So they can select username, source IP, maybe destin IP, and then from these two, add a filter on here, date time filter, maybe last day, and then I can run a query and basically rapidly build dashboards using the data model that maps all the data together.
Yeah, pretty powerful. I'm not a security analyst, but it looks like something that I could do if I if I gave a try at it.
Yeah, I mean, only through a few clicks, you basically get to the data that you can then visualize. And then you have all these nice WYSIWYGs. You can show the data in different formats. And so all this is now available for a customer, basically create their own dashboards. Then they can actually share the dashboard with their users. So they also, the way we work today is that they can then share it with their community too. So people can publish dashboards within Elysium and make it available to other users of the same system. And as you said, we're going to make that available so that users can publish content across different accounts.
Oh, okay, pretty cool. I think this idea of collaboration and marketplaces, I think, is really taking hold, where you're extending the knowledge of your team to the knowledge of the entire industry. I think it's a powerful one to see. And the search capability really drew my attention. Is this just for security data lake, or could folks actually use it for any other search they want, as long as they're pointing to the Snowflake instance connected to Elysium?
Yes, in fact, yes, we do have some non-security customers too. So they use it for IT ops use cases. So for investigating outages, for basically for disturbances. So when they use, and we have alerting built in here too, which I haven't really gone too deep into, but we have alerts that they can build behavioral alerts and regular alerts that, I'll just jump over here really quick. So they can create alerts on their data. So we have IT ops use cases where they'll build alerts on this using like a behavioral analytic and doing some kind of like time series analysis on the data to see if it's changing over a small window, and then alert them, is it changing more than say 20% in the last 5 minutes? If it is, then alert me. And then they use our search interface to do investigations of those alerts.
Pretty awesome. Well, Chris, this was very informative. Learned a lot. Elysium does seem like a very capable tool. Search is the future, and being able to bring that to security data lake, which is, we always see that on the news, right? There is this breach here, there is an incident there, and companies are all paying attention to that. I think, having a product that can take advantage of modern data tools like Snowflake with additional IP on search and the dashboards you've built, I think is very promising. How can folks find out about Elysium if they want to learn more and hear it directly from you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously, they can reach out to us. We're called Elysium Analytics. So you just search on Elysium Analytics. You can reach me. My name is Christopher.Berry at Elysium.analytics. Sorry, ElysiumAnalytics.ai. So you can send me email, and then hopefully, as part of this video, we can provide a link to our website. I just leave you one last thought, I think, before we go real quick. So like you mentioned the search, and I think one of the things that we've been learning is that it's just like, I think, Outlook, where you have search and you have structured querying the data. You really need both. And I think that's where people have been missing, is a search piece. So anyways, I just wanted to share that one little idea. But thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Chris. And all those links will be in the description below, links to the website and how to reach out to Chris. So very exciting topics. Chris, thank you so much for joining us for the Demo Hub. As we make progress, especially with the native apps, which is very exciting to me. I think that the promise for all of that would be massive. Can't wait to do a second take on that as you progress with the product.
Okay. And thank you very much for your time.